Well, hello there, my fellow nerds. Anthony Trombetta here for another episode of My Parents' Basement. We are back in the awesome Titan Gaming here in downtown Whitehorse, and we're doing something a little bit different today. Now, normally we dive into all things comic book, video games, nerdy movies, all that stuff, but where we all come together as basement dwellers and the people who live above us is when it comes to Oscar time. I don't know if you noticed, I'm wearing my best flannel here because yes, My Parents' Basement is going to the movies. Welcome to the table over here. Now I'd like to introduce you to my guests, and I brought you some special guests, people who actually know what they're talking about. Returning to the table, I have Dave Hamelin.
Good to be here.
Cable 9 Wizard, and new to the table, Neil Macdonald, who not only knows his stuff nerd-wise, but actually works in film.
Yeah. Been about 13-year career in the film industry. Yeah.
See, we got people to know what they're talking about. I'll just handle the angry person hollering at the TV portion, because that's how I sometimes feel about the Oscars. Honestly, I thought when they really went downhill for me was when they gave Gladiator Best Picture. Oh. And then I was like, what's going on here? And then you kind of like, because it's tough watching movies in the north. With our theaters, they come so late if we get them at all, and then sometimes we got to wait till they come out on Blu-ray, and then we can finally see what everybody's talking about here. But I feel like the Oscars, it's like they can't seem to reconciliate. Like, we want everyone to come out and see our summer blockbusters, but we're going to give awards to these other movies.
Yeah, it's kind of that last kind of bastion of credibility. I mean, it's funny because it is a big business. I mean, there's been the whole Weinstein phenomenon in the Oscars in the last 10 years, but, there really are the kind of two big, money makers, and it's the summer blockbusters, which don't get any credit at all at the Oscars.
No.
And then there's those dramatic, those big important movies, and, they make a lot of money, particularly around Oscar time. It's a big driver for audience.
But a lot of times those movies that do go on to win, people just forget about. Like, when was the last time you watched Shakespeare in Love or something? You know what I mean?
Time.
It's kind of like it's a big deal for the year, but then come next year, no one's really watching those movies anymore. People are just over it. Whereas movies like summer blockbusters, people like us, how many times have you watched Pacific Rim or something?
I'm just saying.
Yeah. But how many times do you watch Pulp Fiction? There are definitely
that's true.
Epic movies that get recognized every now and again, for sure.
True. Well, let's hop right into the main list here. We'll start with the first segment that a lot of people are going to be talking about: Best Actor and Actress nominees in a lead role. And a lot of times, especially you live on the internet, you see the arguments going and forth. It's not necessarily who's going to win, but who should win.
Yeah.
And for actor in a leading role nominee, if I got to hear people whine about, give the thing to Leonardo DiCaprio already, who's up there? He's up there for The Wolf of Wall Street. This is what everybody's talking about. But it's kind of ridiculous to look at an award show. Just give him an award because he just needs one already,
Yeah, it's funny. There really is that habit in the Oscars of, rewarding people not necessarily for their performance, but because their time is come.
Yeah.
Because they've been passed over. And that's always it's a fun handicap, if you're playing some drinking games or betting during the Oscars, which I recommend, spice it up a little bit. But there's always that dark horse of like, De Niro didn't get it for Raging Bull, so let's give it to him for this movie. Or, Leo deserves one, he hasn't had one. And I don't know, it's something you're never going to get away from because the Academy is made up of people in the industry, right? It's not the foreign press that's voting. It's not the DGC or the DGA that's voting. It's filmmakers and actors and actresses. They're all voting members of the Academy. So it's always going to be a little bit of favorites for sure.
And there's always a bit of that controversy. Like last year, she wasn't up for Best Actress, but Best Supporting was the little girl from Beasts of the Southern Wild.
Yeah.
Like a total no-name person coming onto the scene, and all of a sudden, all these accolades and all these nominations are coming upon you. Whereas, I could see people like Meryl Streep being like, well, who the hell is this kid? I'm Meryl Streep. I deserve this Oscar.
Well, I don't think she's complaining. She's got, what, 4 or 5 at this point?
I think she has the most Oscars for any actress out there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, there are some new names in the actor in a leading role. You have an old school guy like Bruce Dern for Nebraska in there, Christian Bale in there for American Hustle, Leo, of course.
Yep.
I apologize if I might butcher his name because I know he's a huge fan of My Parents' Basement, but Chiwetel Ejiofor for 12 Years a Slave. But then you have Matthew McConaughey, who transformed himself in a crazy way for his role in Dallas Buyers Club. That's kind of where I think that's going to swing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think the front runners definitely. I mean, DiCaprio and McConaughey both won Golden Globes, so they're kind of front runners. But yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about Matthew McConaughey trying to break out of his box, and do something a little different. And he's getting older now. He's finally settled down, has a kid, and he's not doing those stoner roles anymore. And by all accounts, this performance is really amazing. And Dallas Buyers Club is, it's getting a lot of accolade from a lot of critics. I think he's definitely a front runner. But I gotta say, Leo in Wolf of Wall Street was amazing. Amazing
he just
performance.
Took it to its most extreme, and I don't know how he kept up that level of intensity for 3 hours. I love Scorsese, but 3 hours is enough. 2.5 most, please.
So you're saying give it to Leo? Just give it to the guy.
I personally, if I was putting money on this, I would say Leonardo DiCaprio is going to win because he has been Scorsese's his right-hand man for the last 4 or 5 movies. And he's been nominated 3 times now, and he hasn't won.
Yeah.
He did win the Golden Globe, which sometimes is a good indication that they're going to win the Oscar, but sometimes they switch it. They give the Globe to the person that they think, should win, and then the Oscar goes to the person that will win, which could be Matthew McConaughey in this instance.
Yeah. You got to watch 12 Years a Slave, I think, could be a dark horse.
Absolutely.
Could pick up a lot of awards, so...
Mm-hmm.
And he's been gaining a lot of popularity. Chitwell?
Chitwell? Yes.
The guy, the assassin from Serenity. Yeah. That's how I always recognize him.
He's great in that. He's getting an award for that.
Yeah.
Now, actress in a leading role nominee, a little bit of new, a little bit of old in there. Judi Dench, Meryl Streep, of course, they're back there. But it looks like everybody's leaning towards American Hustle. It's like everybody's in love with David O. Russell. I couldn't stand Silver Linings Playbook.
I liked it. It took me a while to watch it. Once I did, I was really glad. I thought it was going to be a downer. It was actually a pretty uplifting movie. She does do a very good role. I can't speak for American Hustle because I haven't seen it yet because we don't have it up here. But for a performance that I have seen that I'm rooting for is Sandra Bullock, Gravity. She carried that whole movie on her shoulders. I think she deserves to win it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's, obviously Judi Dench and Meryl Streep. There's some pretty big name talent in there, but I got to say, having had the pleasure to work with Amy Adams, she's a lovely lady, and I'm rooting for her in this one.
Oh, well, there you go. I think I don't know. I think they might go Gravity. I'm pretty sure they're going to go Gravity.
Yeah.
I threw with that one there. So our next topic, we're going to hit the fun one, the exciting one, the one all of us basement dwellers love, the best special effects and makeup. So, we got our nominees here. Gravity, The Hobbit, Iron Man 3, Lone Ranger, and Star Trek Into Darkness. And this is the one category that, as a kid, it was the one I got excited about, because this is where all the sci-fi movies ended up, right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
I really tuned into this one. And, there was so many movies out there this summer, ridiculous amount. As much as I hated Man of Steel, it's kind of weird that it's not on there.
Surprisingly, yeah, I have to agree with you on that one, because the effects were extraordinary on that film. Whether they hold up against, Gravity, is yet to be said, because that looked incredibly photorealistic. It was all done, shot 3D, whereas I think Man of Steel was post-converted into 3D. Gravity. That's my pick, hands down.
But it makes you wonder like how they go through this criteria of figuring out what these movies are, because I mean we all raised our eyebrows. The Lone Ranger.
Yeah.
What does that have to do with anything?
And like vis effects, like really, like there's a lot of practical effects and stunts in that movie, but like really, there's some outstanding vis effects. Like you're telling me something like Pacific Rim isn't a better contender for best vis effects than Lone Ranger? Like, sometimes I love this category because it is that chance for, our true passion of those fanboy blockbuster movies getting in there. But then sometimes it's so enraging, like, The Lone Ranger? Are you kidding me?
And I've seen it. And Lone Ranger, for whatever good of a or bad of a movie that it was, there wasn't that many effects in it, other than maybe landscape replacements or adding train tracks, explosions, stuff like that. But when you put it up against like Pacific Rim or The Hobbit or anything, it's just like
Iron Man or Superman. Like for me, I mean, even Star Trek Into Darkness, effects heavy movie, but really you compare it to like there's a lot of Captain Kirk on the bridge, and you're comparing it to movies like Pacific Rim or like Superman or Iron Man or Avenger. Like those got to be front runners, and they're never recognized properly in this category.
No, it's neat too. Like a lot of VFX work happens like right in Vancouver and stuff, in those offices right there. And I could imagine, being excited that all these movies I worked on, then you're like, oh, Lone Ranger. Oh, yeah, great job, guys. So basically, if there's one movie in here, if it wins, there's going to be a lot of nerds screaming at their TVs. Yeah. But otherwise, I think every other one in that category there deserves a nod for sure.
Yeah. I think this one's probably a gimme for Gravity. I mean, that the movies that are nominated in a lot of categories tend to really rack up a lot of those craft awards. And, they might give it to something like Star Trek, but I see Gravity.
Well, and it's the only one out of here that's nominated for Best Picture, Best Actress, Best Director, all the stuff. Like, I mean, it'd be nice if they gave it to something like Iron Man 3 or Star Trek, just so Gravity's not hoarding all the awards. But they did create new technology, like Gravity is a scientific leap forward for filmmaking, so it kind of deserves it.
It'll probably take a run for that. Now, makeup and hairstyling is kind of another weird mixed bag with 3 nominees. 3, because I don't know, they got tired after late at night.
They couldn't figure out 2 more to throw in there.
So they got Dallas Buyers Club, which is it's hard to say that's makeup, man, because that's
the thing. But really, that's I think to me, especially the old school Hollywood, like before computer animation and all this stuff. Like you look at movies like Amadeus and stuff like that. Like really that it is an art form, and it is a true craft of, the subtlety and not being able to notice. Like Matthew McConaughey didn't just go and get thin. He had a lot of makeup help. And Jared Leto's character had a lot of makeup work throughout. And in a movie like that, it doesn't jump out at you. It's not the space alien from Star Trek Into Darkness. It's very subtle, but it takes a lot of work and a lot of skill to make that subtlety come through. But 3 categories, 3 nominees. That's my pet peeve with the Oscars. Like
it seems so arbitrary. Like they're just rolling dice and be like, "Oh, we rolled a 3. We're going with 3 this year."
Yeah, like you telling me you can't come up with 2 other movies that had great makeup to nominate? Like give me a break.
The Hobbit. Every single character in that has amazing prosthetics and stuff. That's why I'm like, why is there not a special effects makeup category and a separate makeup and hair? Because they are very much 2 different things. There's beauty and there's special effects. But back in the day, they used to combine it. You had things like American Werewolf in London, The Fly, all these huge movies.
Awesome stuff.
People like Rob Bottin, who did all the effects work on The Thing and stuff. They're getting nominated for all these awards in the 80s, but where's the love today?
I know, Evil Dead was an almost complete practical effects makeup movie, and so grotesque, and I get, it's not everybody's cup of tea, it's very gory and buckets of blood, but amazing craft, amazing work went into making that horrific, movie, and, they should get nominated. They really should. I think we should go back to, having Bottin and those guys get nominated.
Well, when you have people like Stan Winston, he's creating the exoskeletons for Terminator back in the 90s and stuff, in late 80s, total leaps and bounds ahead of other or special effects out there, and he's they got tons of awards, lots of them. Jurassic Park, again, like all these things, but like with where summer blockbusters and all this kind of technology is used for in those kind of movies, where's the love with Jackass Bad Grandpa?
I gotta say,
like, are
though,
you kidding me?
I do gotta say,
Are you
I
kidding
love
me?
that that was nominated for an Oscar. Like, you know, say what you want about the Jackass movies, it's just hilarious to me that it got an Oscar nom. Like, it's
Yeah,
great.
so they turned Johnny Knoxville into an old man, and they turned Johnny Depp into Tonto, and that's where the rest of the other two categories go. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! But let's move on to some fun stuff.
Yes.
Some more exciting things like Best Director, hotly contested one. Everyone's talking Gravity, and of course everyone's talking David O. Russell again. I didn't like Silver Linings Playbook. Not a big fan, really. But again, this is kind of like. It's like the Best Director ones. It seems like the Oscars kind of get it right. It's like we're gonna put the good front runners out in front for Best Director because that seems what we got. We got American Hustle, Gravity, Nebraska, 12 Years a Slave, and The Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, and I mean Alexander Payne, I believe, or his movies like Sideways and stuff. They've won in the past.
Yeah.
David O. Russell's movies won in the past. Scorsese, kind of going back to this idea of politics. He should have won for so many other movies he did back in his career when he was
Raging
at the
Bull.
top of his
Raging
career.
Bull.
But when he gets it for The Departed, Departed was good. It took me a few viewings to really like it to the point where I thought, yes, that deserves Best Picture or Best Directing, hands down. But I mean, Wolf of Wall Street, I'd say that was a solid effort from Scorsese. I think he for sure deserves that nom. Whether he's going to win it, I don't know. I'm banking on Alfonso.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's coming home with this one.
You know, the Directors Guild just had their awards last week, and they're not generally the Directors Guild doesn't give wins to really technical movies. Usually they're about that heart-wrenching performance, and the fact that he won the Directors Guild for best directing in a feature film, I think really is a strong indicator that he's gonna take it for this one. It's a really technical movie, but obviously you have one or two characters running for the whole length of this movie, and really hinges on that performance of Sandra Bullock, and then on top of that, this hugely complex special effects scheme to go along with it.
Yeah.
I think that really looks at the dual skill sets that's required for a great director. Great performance out of an actor and great handling of the craft and the camera and the effects and everything else. And I think he's the front runner. Although David O. Russell is could edge in there. A lot of people really like.
He's a favorite among the Academy right now. I mean, he won big with Silver Linings last year. So
and The Fighter was a front runner too. He's really kind of one of those. The man of the hour almost. It's really his time. So I could see him taking another award for sure.
I hope it goes to Gravity, just because when they win Best Director, usually that gives them the gas, and they come into the next year with something a little more exciting kind of thing. So it'd be fun to see him do another picture with that award in his grasp, and that ride that high into something. Even more awesome.
It was 3 years of his life or something to put Gravity
Well,
together.
Children of Men was his last movie, wasn't it? 2008. So that's 4 or 5 years between movies. So.
They had to spend a little time building the technology to make the movie, but
give him an award. He'll work a little faster, put something else out real soon. Right. So speaking of pictures, here we get to the really wonky part of this whole award ceremony, the Best Picture, where this is where they just, they grabbed 3D6s and then rolled. Let's see how many movies came up. I don't know how to figure it out.
It drives me insane. I can't say it enough times. You're really telling me that you couldn't find one other movie to add in here? Come on. And the other thing, too, is I understand that there's some history behind this. For those people who don't know, this isn't a new thing, adding, 10 nominees in this category. It does date back to, I think, the 30s and 40s. They did it for a string of years, but it drives me nuts. Really, every other category is 5 movies. Just suck it up and narrow down your field to 5 movies. But if you are going to have 10 nominees, don't have 9.
yeah.
And then why doesn't the Best Picture match Best Director? What does that say
Exactly.
to those other directors? It's I got a great picture, but I was lousy directing it? What does that mean?
That's a huge pet peeve of mine. It's if you're going to have things like this, you have to acknowledge the people behind the movies directing it. You can't just arbitrarily say, oh, yes, Philomena is Best Picture material, but the director, no, he's not going to make the cut.
Well, I mean, for me, that's particularly from working in the industry, they really are two different awards. You know, I mean, it's really Best Picture is kind of a producer's award. It's more about, you know, the entire movie and, you know, the cast and all the pieces coming together. And Best Direction really is about directing. And I understand that a lot of people think they should be synonymous, but, you know, they definitely are a little different. I do think, though, if you're going to have 10 nominees, you know, those 5 Best Directing nominees really should be reflected within that. Like, you're probably not going to have Best Directing without Best Picture. Like, it just, you know.
Like last year, Argo won Best Picture, and rightly so. It was a very good movie. But everybody thought above Best Picture that Ben Affleck should have won Best Director, and he didn't.
I think that's where maybe some of the politics can come in a negative way too. Like they don't necessarily, you know, it's not always about getting that award to that guy who deserves it. Sometimes there's, you know, Ben Affleck is an actor and he hasn't directed a lot of pictures, and I think a lot of people might have a bit of resentment. And, you know, that can definitely factor into those. Sometimes it's not his time yet. You know, he needs to pay his dues. It's kind of a crazy concept, but it really, if you go back and look at the results, you can really tell that kind of mentality plays into the voting.
Well, is that what they're doing with Best Picture? They're just let's try and please as many people as possible who might have been snubbed in other categories. So we'll put their picture up there, kind of thing. Well, that's kind of ridiculous.
I don't know. I mean, you know, it definitely has more of a business side to it nowadays. I mean, you know, really with the Weinstein Company in the last 10 years, you know, with things like, you know, a lot of people think they bought the win for Shakespeare in Love and stuff like that. But there really is a big added aspect to the business side. If you are nominated, if you are a winner, you know, like you always see the trailers and Academy Award nominee Jonah Hill, and you know, like it has a cachet to it, and it really affects people's careers. So I think that might be part of it. You know, they're trying to spread the wealth a little bit more, but I still hate it. I still hate it. Like, come on, 5 categories. Like,
they're just making trailers longer.
Yeah.
Academy Award nominee.
Well, when you have like they started it in 2010 when they brought it back, this 10 things. They brought Avatar and District 9 out to the scene, which was cool.
Cool for us.
You know, summer blockbusters getting nominated, but it's like, was Avatar really good enough? I'd say District 9, sure, it was good enough and did get that kind of social message behind it, enough for it to warrant Best Picture. But like Avatar, I mean, it just seems like this kind of like, whoa, we can fit an extra 5.
Well, that's probably sitting around there like, well, it's Spielberg, man.
Well, I feel like maybe if they are going to have 10 nominees in the category, maybe they should do that, you know, spread it around a little bit. Give it to some of those, you know, those tent poles and those bigger movies that wouldn't get nominated for anything else because there's no room. So, yeah.
Well, you know. Maybe that's what they're thinking of. Like we have the other dark horses in there, Captain Phillips, Her, which, you know, is a crazy film, Spike Jonze, Philomena, 12 Years a Slave, Nebraska. So they're kind of sort of doing it with that. But I mean, there's some of these movies that, you know, just came out that we're never going to see anytime soon in the Yukon, like Her and things like that. So.
Yeah, and not only that, like some of them are limited releases. Like I don't think Her had a huge, massive nationwide release.
They do have to hit a national release to get into contention, but yeah, I mean, Philomena, you're talking a really small release compared to a lot of movies, so that can often factor in and make it hard for us Yukoners to really pick our votes.
Well, and the other thing too is, like last year, some movies were kind of double dipping a little bit, like foreign movies. Like Adore or Amour, which won Best Foreign, was also nominated for Best Picture. Doesn't that seem a little like...
It is a little double
you know,
dipping,
it's like, why... If you're going to have Best Foreign, then why can they be in the Best Picture? It seems to me that they should be one and the other. The same with Animated and Best Picture. Like,
yeah, for me, it brings it home that, you know what, 10 is too many. It's too many. Do your homework, Academy, narrow it down. Is it nice to give everybody a pat on the back? Yeah, but at the end of the day, we're picking winners here, so let's pick a winner. Now,
another thing that's been discussed about these Oscars in particular, and something that's of interest to us, you know, is particularly about Scarlett Johansson and her performance of Her. Like, it was a voice acting performance why isn't there any acknowledgement of that at all? And if there is acknowledgement of that, then there's a huge queue of voice actors who are like, "Whoa, hello!"
Yeah, it just
over
opens
here.
up this can of worms, right? But I think,
But it's something that's obvious that's needed.
I think it's something that it's great that it was brought to the attention of the Academy and that there was kind of all this controversy behind it, because I think with the changing times with the film industry, that's one of the problems with overall the Oscars is a lot of the times they're trying to hold on to this golden age of Hollywood when everything is shifting, everything is changing. I mean, even less people are going to the theaters and stuff. So they're always kind of trying to find this way of like, oh, how can we make the Oscars more appealing to the young people? Let's add show tunes. Yeah, good idea, Seth MacFarlane. But they try to always kind of seem to want to reinvent themselves, but they kind of hold back all the time because they're not changing the categories along with the times.
I think hopefully, some of these debates will bring up some thought of maybe adding categories or splitting some categories. Because, I mean, obviously, you look at like Andy Serkis's performance and even, obviously Lord of the Rings, but even his performance as King Kong,
I mean, even Caesar and Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
So, there is a lot of talk of having a digital performance category. It's also the same thing too, like cinematography. Last year, Claudio Miranda won for Life of Pi, and that entire movie is green screen. So there's a lot of talk of maybe dividing that category into two and having traditional cinematography and digital cinematography, but then you've got to figure out what qualifies, and you start getting into percentages and stuff. But I think hopefully the Academy starts to recognize that stuff because it is a changing world. And you look at Avatar, like motion capture was the vast majority of that movie, and it was nominated for cinematography, I'm pretty sure, but it's like, isn't that a different ballgame than, like Roger Deakins doing Prisoners this year? Like, probably didn't have a single vis effects shot in the whole movie, and it's, they're different things, so hopefully the Academy recognizes that and starts to branch out their categories a little bit.
Well, it seems strange, movies are advancing, everything's evolving, but the Oscars are kind of, they're staying right there. It's just like, we just got to do whatever we can to bank as many Nielsen rating people as we need,
Well, and I was watching the Grammys too, and like even they're changing awards that they've never changed before. Yeah. And so it's just like Oscars
they're figuring things out. I think it'll be a slow process, but when the Oscars go down March 2nd, any particular nominee out of any of that you want to see walk away winning big?
I'm a huge nerd for the craft, having worked behind the scenes in movies for so long. So cinematography is always the one that I watch. And, I love Roger Deakins. I really, I hope he takes the win. He's a beautiful cinematographer, makes amazing pictures.
He is amazing. I'm always a stickler for the writers. I love those categories. And I'm really rooting for Spike Jonze, original screenplay for Her. He's such a unique and particular kind of filmmaker who only does movies every so often. And this it was his own script. He wrote it. A lot of the other movies, like Being John Malkovich, adaptation, both Charlie Kaufman scripts. So to do his own movie from his own writing, I'm really rooting for Spike Jonze on this one. Yeah.
For me, anything in here that is any close to a genre film, if it wins, I'm happy. Any genre film that wins an award, I'll be happy. I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
But as long as nerd stuff is winning awards, that means they will make more. They will make more. And that's some cool stuff.
Yeah. Gravity, though, I think is going to win Best Picture. That's just my personal opinion.
I'll be happy with that. Yeah, I'm fine with that. No problem whatsoever.
Yeah.
Genre piece for sure.
I know. Look at that. We ended in my parents' basement in a nice, amicable manner. Yes. Maybe our argument will be what's next we'll have.
If I had a tie, I would straighten it.
Yes. Good. Excellent. Well, that was my parents' basement. Look at the Oscars. You probably disagree, don't you? I know. Well, you can send your own comments or questions. Send us to them via email. Hit us on Facebook. Whatever you can. Throw us your 2 cents. Send us your Oscar picks. We'll see whose lists jive with which. But I just want to thank my guests that were on today, Neil and Dave. My name's Anthony Trombetta, and thank you to Titan Gaming for hosting us once again in your wonderful basement. And we hope to see you back in ours next time. And to the Oscar folks, I just want to say, I know a movie about giant robots punching giant monsters isn't going to win any Oscars anytime soon, but it's giant robots versus giant monsters. Come on! You could have given something. Jeepers!